Well, thank you all very much for inviting me back. I'm running out of things to say. You guys are great. I hope I'm as good as the dessert. I want to talk tonight about science and how science interfaces with faith. I am a card-carrying, hardcore scientist, so that's the perspective I'm coming from. And in particular, I'm a physicist, so what I have to say may not pertain to all branches of science. Now I want to talk about 3 instances in which science and faith seem to come together and discuss how we can find the common ground between them. This is a concept, the God of the Gaps, that's a theological notion. It was discussed by an evangelical preacher, Henry Drummond, in 1894, and he pointed out that human knowledge will always have gaps. And there's a tendency by some to fill these gaps, if you will, or explain these gaps with God. So as an example, we have lightning. Now, more than 300 years ago, no one understood what lightning really was. And a lot of people therefore assumed that lightning was related to God. It was the wrath of God. And that was actually kind of embarrassing because lightning tends to strike these tall, pointy things like church steeples. It's not clear what God's message was there. Well, eventually, scientists discovered that lightning is the discharge of static electricity, and we can protect church steeples and other buildings with lightning rods. And for those that had filled this gap with God, the advance of science was a threat to their view of God. Now, an alternative would have been to view God as the creator of the universe and the creator of all natural laws, including the laws of static electricity. And viewed in that sense, that as science advances, it better reveals his laws in creation, and so it enhances the view of God, not threatens the view of God. And this gentleman, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, said we should strive to find God in what we know and not in what we do not know. Another thought that I've heard periodically is that science, in its lust for reductionist materialism, has reduced the wonder and awe of our existence and reduced it to some sort of mechanical process and taken the spirituality out of it. And actually, in my view, I think the opposite is true. Science has discovered the incredible precision and harmony with which all the different systems in the human body operate to keep us alive. We have discovered the incredible sophistication of the blueprint of life that's recorded in our DNA. Any single copy of any one of our DNA would fill 1,500 volumes of the Encyclopedia Britannica. Science has discovered that the life cycle of stars, because of the delicate balance of the different forces of nature, enables an array of stars, some of which are very long-lasting and can support life by supplying energy, and others are very short-lived and create the atoms in our body, and because of their short lifespan, they explode and recycle those atoms into the cosmos, and that's what all of us are made of. So it's this very intricate system that allows life to exist because of the characteristics of stars. Science has also discovered the many remarkable attributes of our own home planet, and particularly having found thousands of planets around other stars, we realize every day how much more special the Earth is than we could have ever thought before. And finally, the fine-tuning of the universe, the incredible precision with which these parameters of the universe are set, can only increase our appreciation of the magnificence of our existence. Now I want to discuss 2 of the cornerstones, one of science and one of faith, the book of Genesis, and I want to compare that to the scientific theory of the Big Bang. Here are 2 ideas that have come to humanity from very different time periods, 25 centuries apart. They come to humanity from very different philosophical origins, and as I will show you here, they give us almost exactly the same rendition. They both make the profound statement that there was a time before our universe existed. There was a before in which there was nothing. And they both say that the universe was created in an instant. Science doesn't attribute that to any particular cause, and of course the book of Genesis says it's God that created the universe. Genesis says that God said, "Let there be light." And the Big Bang Theory says first there was energy, space, and time. Well, what is energy, space, and time? That's what light is. The book of Genesis said that God separated creation into the heavenly firmament and the dry land, which he called earth. And science says there were then stars and planets. So that's pretty much the same thing. And then they both say that then came life, first plants and animals, and finally humanity. And so these two very different, these two descriptions with very different origins have ended up telling us almost exactly the same thing. And I think that is one of the most remarkable facts in existence. Oh, I did forget something. The book of Genesis says all that took 6 days. And the theory of the Big Bang says this took a few billion years. And the numbers obviously are very different. Now I gave this talk I was invited to give this talk by the Department of Religion at Loma Linda University. It's an organization run by the Seventh-day Adventists. And when I got to that line, I told them that I didn't think the number was the most important part of the message. And I didn't think it was important enough that they should change the name of their faith to the 13-year billion-year Adventists. I was sticking my neck out there, and they graciously laughed at my joke, my lame joke, so I lived to tell the tale. Now, let's consider science as the book of nature. And what does that mean? Well, Johannes Kepler said that God wanted to be known through the book of nature. And I would say that almost every scientist who believes in God must believe that God's message is written throughout all of nature. And that by understanding nature, this helps humanity better appreciate his creation and his plan. And this is, in that spirit, the first page in the book of nature. I think Pastor Thompson has shown this at the Easter service in 2006?
Yeah, some years ago, yeah.
Yeah. So I will call this the Oldest Testament. This is the oldest image of our universe that we will ever be able to see. This is an actual photograph. It's not a computer-generated image. And this shows our universe when it was 1/3 of a million years old. That's 36,000 times less than it is today. So if you compare the universe today to a 100-year-old man, then this is a picture of that person 24 hours after the moment of conception. So this is the ultimate sonogram of the universe. And you can see these little red dots. These have evolved, each of them, to become a cluster of galaxies. And the little blue dots have evolved over the billions of years to become relative voids in the universe. Now, scientists have learned how to read what this picture says. It looks like it may be some Rorschach test or something, but actually it contains a tremendous amount of information. And we read it with a technique, a mathematical technique, which is called the power spectrum analysis. And basically, this is a fancy way of telling how clumpy that picture is. So if we did a power spectrum analysis on an oil painting, we would be able to tell you what size brushes the artist used and how often he used each brush size. And we can do that same analysis on this data, and what we find is this result. The black dots in this image are the experimental points that are measured from the data, from that image, and the vertical lines tell you what the precision of the measurement is. This precision is not so good, but over here the precision is so outstanding that you can't even see the bars. So every one of these big black dots is a data point measured in that picture that you just saw. And the red line, which is going through all of those points, more or less, is the prediction of the Big Bang Theory. And the agreement between the data and the Big Bang Theory is really outstanding. And that's a very complicated curve. It's fit very nicely by the theory, and anyone is certainly welcome to come up with their own new theory of the universe. It's a free country, of course. But any new theory, before it gets the attention of science, is going to have to match this data at least as well as the Big Bang Theory. And I would say that that is
What are the
a
axes?
great challenge.
What are the axes?
You're going to ask a real question? Dave, this axis is basically the size of the dots, okay? This tells us there are a lot of dots that size. This is the frequency of the dots of the different size. I simplified it a bit, but that's what it is. So there are lots of dots of this size, and there are a smaller number of dots of this particular size, and so on. Okay, so because of the fit of this data, we can determine from the image that you saw before all of this information. We find the age of the universe, 13¾ billion years, now measured to a precision of better than 1%. We find that the universe is composed of 3 different types of energy, and the normal matter, atoms made of protons, neutrons, electrons, all the atoms on the periodic table, all the atoms in our body, in the earth, and the stars that we see in the heavens, everything we can see, that's only 4.5% of what's out there. After 400 years of modern science, we have nailed down 4.5%. 22% is made of something called dark matter, of which we have almost no idea what it is. And 73%, almost 3/4, is something called dark energy, and we have a reasonable guess, but no more than that. The universe also, globally, has a geometry which corresponds to Euclidean geometry. So if it was 100%, that would be the Euclidean geometry, so it's very close to that. So the most important thing is we've discovered the age of the universe from that picture that you saw before. Okay, so let me tell you why I believe that science and faith are compatible. Now, certainly,